The Toronto Blue Jays could not pull out a series win over the New York Yankees. They sit 1.5 games back. What's the upcoming schedule like? How can this team somehow squeak into the playoffs?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day.
As always, I'm Braden Owasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Owasco. Carter First, too, as well on our main Twitter account, at Locked On Jays. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and leave us your thoughts, feelings, and comments down below. We got a lot to get into. Obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays lose the series to the New York Yankees, but overall, in this last bit of stretch, have played some really good baseball. 1.5 games back to the wild card spot, and how can they fight and claw and find themselves in a playoff spot at the end of all this? It's going to be a big question that we're going to answer. The Toronto Blue Jays have an off day later or today, so not a series to preview today, but an off day, and we'll get into some more stuff for a big day the Toronto Blue Jays will be participating in later on in the show. But Carter, after this weekend of baseball, has it changed your opinion on what the Toronto Blue Jays are right now?
Not much. I mean, this was one of those series that we kind of reverted back to our offensive woes where they just could not hit with runners in scoring position. But you look at the pitchers that the Toronto Blue Jays faced. You're in Yankee Stadium. You're in enemy territory. You have to go against Cam Schlittler, who is one of the favorites to win the AL Cy Young. Then you have Ryan Weathers, a lefty, which the Toronto Blue Jays not very good against, even though he didn't really have an extended start because unfortunately did leave with an injury. And then Carlos Rodon, another lefty, who I didn't think looked amazing, but the Toronto Blue Jays not usually able to handle lefties, even though they have had some okay games in the past, like just the last week or so. Peyton Tolley kind of, took advantage of the Toronto Blue Jays lineup. That was not a very fun one. Jesus Luzardo, that's another one the Toronto Blue Jays lost. Ian Seymour, there's a lot of lefties that they have been going against, and it hasn't necessarily been going well. So it's always worrisome when it's a lefty on the mound against the Toronto Blue Jays, because you're always worried about what this offensive output is going to be. And that's kind of what you saw throughout this weekend. Again, you had a ton of runners in scoring position against Cam Schlittler on the Friday. You're not really able to cash in. You score one run, you're just simply not going to win a lot of baseball games like that. The second game, it would have been a lot more frustrating if they did lose that game. I mean, 15 hits, you score 4 runs. You definitely want a little bit more in that department. And then once again, this one's a little bit for the Sunday. It's a little bit of the pitching. Jose Soriano, probably his worst start since playing for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think he just could have been around the zone a little bit more. But overall, not that, I haven't really changed my mentality on the Toronto Blue Jays. If this team is going to lose, it's probably going to be because of the offense not scoring runs.
Yeah, and I think what really stands out in my mind is that I think they outplayed the New York Yankees in the first 2 games of this series. But, when you can't drive in the runners, you're sort of backing yourself into a corner. They out-hit the Yankees in the first game, out-hit the Yankees in the second game. That second game was way closer than it should have been. I think there was a lot here to still find some solace in this series. I think there is a lot of good, but the bad just stands out because you don't end up winning this series. And I guess, Carter, my next question for you, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. returns post-concussion protocol. Not much has changed.
I don't think it's been as bad. Unfortunately, right now with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he did have a lot of hard hit balls, but we're just at the point where we need the results. You can hit the ball as hard as you want. If it's going right at somebody, that's not going to be enough for Toronto Blue Jays fans. He kind of did this to himself, unfortunately, when you have a season that Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s had. As soon as you don't have a hit in a game, people are not going to be very happy with you. But did have 2 singles in the Saturday game. That could be an issue for some people as well because they are singles and you're looking for a little bit more from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But I'm at the point here where if you can just get on base, if you can even get walks, if you can get hit singles, just find a way to keep the lineup moving. It's unfortunate when you're talking like that about a $500 million man. That's kind of where we're at with Vladdy. There's 30 games for him to kind of try to turn his season around. I mean, we're 132 games in, and we've kind of seen the same thing over and over again. Still seems like he's a little bit late on a lot of these pitches. Again, some of the swing decisions are worrisome in some regards. Again, there was an at-bat in the Sunday game. He's up 3-1 in a count and then swings at a pitch that's not even in the strike zone. So that's not exactly what you want to see from Vladdy. You want him to be aggressive on the pitches that he thinks he can get good contact with, the pitches that he thinks he can drive, but unfortunately just haven't really seen it very consistently. So overall, I think it was there was some encouraging signs, but we've said that a few times on this podcast, and he hasn't really turned that corner. So we're running out of time here. If he can go on a crazy run, which again, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast too, but you have 30 games. If he can have a very good run here, 800 OPS, even somewhere around those lines, it might save his grace a little bit. If he can lead the Toronto Blue Jays to the playoffs, people might not be happy necessarily with the season, but they'd be a lot more okay with what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big thing is, right, like I could see a world in which the Toronto Blue Jays sneak into the playoffs and then Vladdy goes absolutely berserker mode in the playoffs. But the other problem is you can't just prey on that because this team isn't in a guaranteed playoff spot. So you can't sit here and say that, oh, well, Vlad may turn it on when the lights get bright, because the lights are bright right now, Carter. This team needs wins, and they need them badly every single time they go out there, because you do see it, right? One game here or one game there can change your outlook into the wild card by a full game. Like, it's crazy that this team is right now sitting 1.5 games back. First of all, it's crazy that this team is 1.5 games back. But there were times where they could have taken advantage, especially I think about that first game against the Yankees. Like, maybe you could have scraped one together. I was really concerned about game 2. But if you were able to win this series, I think you're looking at a pretty high chance that you could capture that wild card. Now there's still some fighting and some clawing left to be done from this team.
Well, I mean, just look at the Sunday. All of the teams that are in the wild card race, the Rangers won, and that's it. Like, that's the only team in the American League wildcard race that won a game. The Seattle Mariners, oh my goodness. I mean, we think things are bad for Toronto sometimes, but then you look at the Mariners, what's going on over there, and they were just getting absolutely waxed the second time in a week where they put up, 19 runs, and I think the other one was, 20, 21? Absolutely insanity what's going on over there. Bryce Miller not really having that fun of a time. But you look at it in totality, we talked about the 16-game stretch, 10-6 over that 16-game stretch against the Phillies, against the Red Sox, against the Rays, against the Yankees, all playoff teams, all very good baseball teams that you're trying to kind of compete with. If you are able to beat those teams, in theory, you should be able to beat what's in front of you for these last 30 games. And if the Toronto Blue Jays don't make the playoffs, then it's completely up to their own fault, because you have the ability to make up some ground. You have the ability to gain some ground on a lot of these other teams that aren't very good baseball teams either. So if you want to prove that you are a playoff team and deserving to be a playoff team, this is this run that they're going to have to go on. But this is one of the things that's going to have to change. I talked about the runners in scoring position. I have the numbers of what the Toronto Blue Jays did in those games. So Friday, they were 1 for 14. That's simply not going to be enough. You only score one run because you can't hit with runners in scoring position. The Saturday game, 15 hits, but 4 for 18 with runners in scoring position. Not exactly ideal either. And you look at the Sunday 8-3 loss, 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. That is 6 for 41 over the weekend. That's simply not good enough. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys that. Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves. It has to be better than that. If this is going to be the offense again, I can't really be too upset, because they have been a lot better recently. The offense has been scoring more runs, and it's a good Yankees team with a good starting pitching staff. So this happens from time to time. Unfortunately, where the Toronto Blue Jays are at is you can't really stack up these series losses, but they just won, 7 series in a row. So you can't really be that upset for what they've been doing. Obviously, sucks when you lose a series on the road, but 3-3 against AL East opponents. Can't be that upset about the baseball the Toronto Blue Jays are playing, but the runners in scoring position the hitting with runners in scoring position has to get a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that we've nonstop talked about all season long, and we saw changes a little bit there when they were winning series, but then even at that, there were some games that, hey, they're winning 3-1, 3-2, right? It's not like they're blowing the doors off of teams. So yeah, I'm interested to see if that script can flip or get back to it, especially in these last 30 games. But Carter, I think that's where I want to lead this conversation next, is that how good does this team have to be to get into the playoffs? So I think we're going to take a quick pause, Carter. We'll come back, and that's what I want to get into, because that's what we're all doing right now. We're scoreboard watching every single night to see what happens in the remainder of the league, but what do the Blue Jays have to do themselves? We'll take a quick pause, and we'll answer that question on the other side.
Today's episode is sponsored by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. And that's where Odoo comes into play. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales to accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place. Odoo is the one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone working towards the same goal. And that's true in sports just like it is in business. Just looking at the Toronto Blue Jays, he's starting to stack up series wins. That's because their pitching was phenomenal. The bullpen has been unbelievable this year as well. And they were hitting, whether it was with runners in scoring position, whether it was stacking up those big innings, scoring a lot of runs. That is how this team was going to stack up those series wins. You see them not hit with runners in scoring position. You see the offense kind of fall flat in the Yankee series. And unfortunately, they are not able to get on top. So you have to have a cohesive unit. You have to all be working together towards the same goal and have everything working out the way it's supposed to be, whether that is with your business, your sports team, or in just multiple facets of life. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo today. Try Odoo for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That is odoo.com/lockedon.
So, Carter, as we continue on, I brought it up just before we took that break. The Toronto Blue Jays with 30 games remaining. I'll go over the schedule just for everybody so that you know who the Toronto Blue Jays will be facing. And then, Carter, I want to get your take on sort of what their record needs to be, what the final outcome of this season has to be. They got 3 games against the Rays, 3 games against the Mariners, 3 against the Guardians, the Royals.
Oh, the Royals, you mean, not Rays?
The Royals, sorry, thank you. Yep, just, brain fart. Athletics, Orioles, Tigers, Rangers, Orioles, and then capping things off against the Reds. Those are all teams that you are in the battle for right now. That Rangers series is going to be absolutely must-see baseball, I think. Again, any team against the AL East is going to be interesting, and the Guardian series as well coming up is going to be, they're all important at this time of year. 30 games remaining, Carter. How good does this team have to be over these next 30? Like, what's the record going to have to be like in your head for you to say, yep, this is a playoff team?
Yeah, I want to say like 20-10, but with the American League, you probably don't even have to be that good. Like, just looking at the standings right now, the Houston Astros leading their division at 65-66. That is tied with the Texas Rangers, so that's another team that are kind of in competition with the Toronto Blue Jays to maybe get that last wild card spot. You have a very easy schedule. You named off a lot of those teams. The Rangers right with you. The Orioles right with you. The Mariners, the Tigers, the Guardians. A lot of these teams are right in front of your face. So you got to win those series specifically. Like, beating the Royals is obviously going to be very good. Beating the Reds is obviously going to be good for the team as well. But if you can beat the teams in front of you, that's obviously making them lose games. And no matter what happens, you are gaining a game on them in the standings. So the number that I'm going to put on this, I'm going to say, I think 18 wins probably gets it done. I'd be more comfortable with 19, a lot more comfortable with 20, 25, obviously, but it's baseball. I don't expect the Toronto Blue Jays to go 30-0. I think 18 wins gives them a pretty good shot. That's assuming that they beat the Rangers in a series. Sweeping one of these teams would be phenomenal for the outlook on the standings. The Tigers are a team that I think they have to beat as well, even though they've been scuffling immensely. The Orioles, another team in the AL East. I think that's going to be a very important series. I guess they're all important series at this point, but I would say 18-12. I think that should get it done for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, you took the number right out of my head. Now, don't get me wrong. Do I think that guarantees you a spot? No, but I think it puts you probably to that last game of the season to maybe be a good deciding factor. So I think if you can go 17-12 heading into the last day of baseball and win that game, maybe that is enough. Now, am I sold on that? Am I sitting here telling you that, yes, that's the number that's going to get this team in? No, I think that realistically, to be safe, maybe not having to worry about that last day, I think you have to aim for 20-10. Yeah. I think you were right on the money. 20-10 to me seems like, okay, this team did what they had to do against a lot of these teams and probably got a sweep in there as well. That to me is proving it that, okay, you deserve to be in the playoffs. And even at that, I don't know if I could say deserving it, but it does enough. And I take a look at what a lot of these teams have done this season, just in terms of, I don't like this metric as a statistic, but it's run differential, Carter. I mean, you look at a lot of these teams within the wild card race, all have a negative run differential, except, weirdly enough, the Detroit Tigers, who have a plus 73 run differential. So, when we talk run differential, it matters for the majority it does matter a little bit for the majority of the time. But there are those teams that are, way off one way or way off the other, make it into the playoffs with such a bad one or miss the playoffs and having such a good one. But it really shows the difference. Even if you look at like the Red Sox in that second wild card spot to then every other team below them, there is a difference there. And the Toronto Blue Jays are in that with a negative 55 run differential because we've seen how bad this offense could be. They don't give up a ton of runs, but they also score almost debatably negative runs, Carter.
Well, and earlier in the season, when the Toronto Blue Jays were getting beat, like they would go down 5-0, they'd almost roll over, and sometimes that would get carried out of hand. They'd lose 8-0. They had to be in position players pitching, it seemed like, every other week, which was not a good spot to be in, whether it was Tyler Heineman, Miles Straw, like a lot of guys that you shouldn't be seeing on the mound if your team is being successful. And kind of breaking it down farther, all of the starting pitchers, you have 30 games left. That should mean that all the starting pitchers have 6 games to pitch. So looking at it objectively here, you have Jose Soriano, Dylan Cease. You probably got to go 10-2 with those guys on the mound. Maybe 9-3, but those two guys you're really going to have to ride down this stretch to give you quality starts, because when you have Max Scherzer and Spencer Arrighetti, that's a little bit of a coin flip. You don't know exactly what they're going to give you on every day. Again, you have to be above 500 when those two guys are on the mound. Maybe you use his bullpen even more than you already have been, which is absolutely insane. But at this point, I mean, hey, you got it right in front of you. You have 30 games left. It's all or nothing at this point. So Shane Bieber, another guy that if he can kind of be a stabilizer in that starting rotation, that would be huge for the Toronto Blue Jays down the stretch. You need at least 3 guys, obviously, in a playoff series if the Toronto Blue Jays get there. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but you need 3 guys to stabilize a rotation, no matter if it's the wild card, if it's an ALDS, if it's an ALCS. You have to have these guys pitching effectively if the Toronto Blue Jays want a chance, because I don't think anyone expects this offense to be a top 10 offense in baseball down the stretch. If they can be somewhere in the middle of the pack and you have phenomenal pitching, that's probably the recipe for success for the Blue Jays making the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up the starting pitching and just how good each of these specific guys need to be. Do you think that there's any chance with, 5 games remaining that you maybe get a start or 2 out of Trey Savage, or do you think that's out of question right now?
I think they really want him to be available. That's one of those things with a meniscus that you don't want to rush back. A stability issue is going to be a massive one there, depending on how comfortable he is. Looking at the timeline, I would be surprised if he makes starts in the regular season. I'd honestly be surprised if he's available for a wild card series. So you got to hope that he is ahead of his recovery. If he's available, you are obviously throwing him, whether it's in for Max Scherzer, whether it's Arrighetti. I think with everything we've seen from the Toronto Blue Jays, it probably means Arrighetti is either getting sent down or it's just an extra arm in the bullpen. When you have, the September rosters expand from 26 to 28, you get a few extra guys that you can rely on. So I think with that, you would love to see Trey Savage, again, be one of those things where you'd have to have rehab assignments, you'd have to ramp up, and then, not pitching for a little while. That's not exactly the feeling that I want when you're in a playoff hunt, and you probably have to win those games in that last 2 weeks or so. But if Trey Savage is available, you are definitely throwing him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if he comes in and is your 4th best starter behind Jose Soriano, Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, even if he can go out there and give you that 4th guy, right? I think you're over the moon by that, because I would trust back from injury Trey Savage over Max Scherzer or Spencer Arrighetti any day of the week. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see down the line, because the way that I read that injury was if they can get into the playoffs and make a run, that's where you could potentially see a Trey Savage return. But I think it's a little bit unlikely that we do see him in the regular season, which I hate to say, because I would absolutely kill for Trey Savage to be on the mound right now. It just doesn't seem legit. And I guess I'm going to ask you about another guy of potentially getting him back. No super updates. Anthony Santander. Any thoughts there? Because we don't know much right now. The last we heard was he was hitting off a tee. So
Yeah, nothing really coming out since then. The Toronto Blue Jays need pop desperately. Like I brought up the runners in scoring position stats. If you hit home runs, they don't need to be in scoring position. They just have to be on base. So if Anthony Santander is healthy, I know a lot of people don't like Anthony Santander simply because they haven't really seen him play for the Toronto Blue Jays whatsoever. But when you look at what Anthony Santander has done in his 3 years that he has been healthy, had over 30 home runs in every one of those seasons. So it'd be a little bit tough with the outfield defense. I don't know how you would work that into the lineup, whether it's probably Santander playing the outfield. And I mean, I think that would be better than Jesus Sanchez, but not a whole lot better. But it's one of those guys, again, if he's available, the ramp up would be an issue. How he adjusts to MLB pitching when he hasn't played, 50 games in the last 2 seasons. Yeah. So there'd be a lot of question marks for me. But I think another guy that has a lot of upside. So if you can get that bat in the middle of this order, one of those things that you hope he can get hot really early on, which is a very unfair expectation. But that's where the Toronto Blue Jays are at. Now, you can't have a guy in the middle of the lineup that's going to go in there and go 2 for 30 over a stretch, especially when there's already a struggle with runners in scoring position. You have guys like Vladdy, George Springer that aren't necessarily hitting that well. You have those 3 guys in the lineup that aren't necessarily hitting. I mean, I don't think that is necessarily a recipe for success, but it's one of those things that you take the upside case, you hope that it works out, and you just kind of have to fire anything at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, and I guess that's where we are in this season. And I guess we're sitting here looking for any little spark that can get this team over the hump, right, and get them into a playoff spot. But it is tough. It is tough to imagine that this team is going to continue battling the way they have been for the past two or so weeks, 3 weeks, all the way through this 30-game stretch. And it's going to be a grind. It's going to be grueling because you're playing teams that also want to claim that spot. I guess, Carter, if I had to ask you right now, outside of Alejandro Kirk, I will say, who has been the difference maker of this team over this big stretch that they've been on?
I think you have to go Charles McAdoo. I think he's been one of the guys that has ignited that spark, ignited the flame within the Toronto Blue Jays lineup. But other than Alejandro Kirk, I don't think you can truly single out anyone. Brett Bateman had a very good series as well. You get Daz Cameron. That home run, I'm still thinking about that one in my dreams. So there's a lot of guys. It's kind of that all-for-one mentality. Ernie Clement had a few good games. The Sacramento stud, Nathan Lucas, almost single-handedly won you that Saturday game in a pinch hitting scenario where it wasn't even starting the game. So it's coming from a lot of different sources. Other than Alejandro Kirk, he has been that consistent source on a 12-game hitting streak. Again, driving in runs in this series, one of the only guys that was kind of hitting with runners in scoring position. So I don't think it's going to be necessarily this one guy that stands out unless George Springer can catch fire, unless somehow Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can catch fire. Maybe Kazuma Okamoto can keep launching baseballs into orbit. You got to get someone hot. You can't just rely on Alejandro Kirk, even though he has been absolutely phenomenal. That's the thing. It's the biggest what if. If you get George Springer going, if you get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. going, if you get some of these guys going at the same time, hot at the exact same time, we haven't seen that really at all this year. George Springer's carried the offense at one point. Ernie Clement was kind of trying to do that. Kazuma Okamoto was on a generational run for a 2-3 week stretch back, in the dog days of the summer. So if you can get these guys hot at the same time, you have multiple players on this team hitting, whether it's a 300 average, hitting for power, hitting those line drives, hitting gap shots, that could be a pretty scary offense. And I think that would be huge for the Toronto Blue Jays down the stretch because I don't have that many concerns for the starting rotation, the bullpen. Of course, Max Scherzer, there's some question marks there. Spencer Arrighetti, some question marks there. But overall, the pitching has been very good. This team, what's going to happen and what this team's destination is going to be come October is going to be solely reliant on the offense. If you can get some of these guys hitting at the same time, that is going to be the recipe for success for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Nice little Buck Martinez on that one. I like that. Yeah.
Paying homage to Buck Martinez. He was at the Tampa Bay Rays series. You might as well include him in here too.
Exactly. No, Carter, it's what we talked about all year, right? This team can do damage. Imagine if you just had a half-decent Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and George Springer rolling at the same time with how Alejandro Kirk and the rest of this lineup is playing. That is a completely different baseball team you're looking at. It's just sad that we're sitting here and having to say, hey, Chuck Mack, sorry, it's your first season in the league, but get up here and be the spark plug of this team. Hey, Brett Bateman, who we just got, hey, be a spark plug for this team. Be gritty out there.
Miles
Straw, exactly. Pick a guy right now. Everybody's sort of doing their piece outside of the two of the superstars on this team. And again, I just feel like I'm repeating myself because we've said this all year. And this really isn't a podcast of me complaining about this Blue Jays team right now. I think the major takeaway for me is everybody on this team seems like they're doing their job outside of George Springer, who actually hasn't been horrible lately, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who I just think has just not bounced back yet. And I think we were all sitting and hoping that, hey, maybe after this little break, maybe for somehow Vladdy gets cooking again, gets out of his head. But yeah, he's hitting balls hard, but again, it's a results-based business, Carter.
Yeah, eventually you got to hope that those hard hit balls will find some grass. Maybe they'll find some seats would be more ideal. Maybe that will happen once at the Rogers Center. Can't believe we're still on the chase for one at the Rogers Center for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But another thing that hopefully can change down the stretch is the Toronto Blue Jays injury luck, because it has been absolutely ridiculous. The Toronto Blue Jays have had 26 players on the IL at different times throughout the season. That's a full roster. That is literally a full MLB roster, which is absolutely incredible. The fact that they're even kind of in this race with Vladdy playing the way he is, with all the injuries that have stacked up, is impressive in its own regard. But that is something that, we can't take any more injuries. We can't have ourselves, we're shooting ourselves in the foot every single game, it feels like, anyway, offensively. Well, not every single game. That's maybe a little bit too harsh for what's been going on recently. But now, if you stack up the injuries, I don't even want to bring up what could happen if, one of your top guys from your starting rotation go down. You're going to have to throw for the Toronto Blue Jays, and we'll see how that's going to have to go. But that's another thing. It's the offense, it's the injuries, and then you just got to hope that things can maybe turn a corner. Maybe we get Bo Timber from everyone within the Toronto Blue Jays lineup in September here.
That would be something for sure. Carter, we'll take a quick break. We'll tee up what's coming on the off day and a special Blue Jays announcement that has come out. We'll let you guys in on all of that right after this short break. Big thank you to our friends at Amazon. We appreciate them for giving you guys the limited ad break. That's right, only one ad here this back to school season. Spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy back to school shopping experience can be. It starts with a few items on the list, then suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech, and about 10 other things you didn't see coming. It does. It really adds up quick. You know, when you're buying back to school clothes, then your kids growth spurt comes 2 weeks later, and you're right back where you all started. Sometimes it genuinely feels like they're growing faster than the budget can keep up with. That's how I feel on an everyday basis with anything. It seems like, you finally, make this purchase that you think you need, right? But then something else breaks. Then you got to go replace that. It's one thing after another. That's why Amazon really wants to help you out. Again, Amazon's low back to school prices. Just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. All right, Carter, just before we continue on, I did want to mention the Blue Jays announcement. We'll talk about the off day, but I want to get your take on this one. The Blue Jays and the Cubs, August 19th, will participate in this is in 2027, in the Little League Classic. That's August 19th of 2027. Super nice to see. It's the annual regular season Major League Baseball game. It takes place at historic Bowman Field, for those of you that don't know. It's nice. You get the big leaguers, you get the little league kids coming out. It's a blast. Carter, I don't know how much you watch Little League World Series baseball, but it's always on at work for us. So I'm just watching Little League World Series on a day to day. Some of those kids can chalk, dude. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, I see a lot of the highlights a lot of the time. I'm not sitting down watching a full Little League World Series game. Maybe the actual final, I'll kind of sit down and tune into. But I'm looking at a lot of the highlights, 2 no-hitters already thrown in the Little League World Series. It's always fun for the kids. It's always fun when people get mad at it too. It's a bunch of 12-year-olds playing, and people are getting upset about that, which is just sports fandom in a nutshell. But the first thing I thought about when I saw the announcement for the Little League World Series is it even going to happen? Are we going to be playing baseball at that point? Cool, it's an announcement for 2027, yeah. But who knows if there's even going to be a season. So, congrats to the Blue Jays for playing in this game. If it even happens is the biggest issue.
Yeah, you know what? It keeps coming back to that, right? We talk about next season. We talk about next year. We talk about, okay, how do you build for this, for that? But yeah, we're all sitting here sort of still contemplating if there is going to be that season. So it's sad to say, especially for big events like this where you got the kids coming along, but that's the world we live in, right? Everybody wants more money. And I guess, can you blame them? Because it seems like everywhere you go, whether it's, different food stores, whether it's, the business that runs down the street, everybody wants more money. And that's exactly what's happening with the MLB. It's exactly what's happening with the Players Association. And I think there's a lot of people that listen to our podcast and everything that want the players to get what they want. But then there are another section of people that also want a salary cap really bad. They want to see a salary cap implemented in the MLB. And to me, a perfect middle ground would be you bring in a salary cap and you bring in a salary floor and you dictate where this is going to go. But we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, cool announcement either way, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of time to talk about this, unfortunately, in the off season. Hopefully not during the season. If you get to August 19th and there still isn't baseball on the TV, that is going to be a tough scene. I don't know what we're going to do with ourselves because we're just committed to Toronto Blue Jays baseball. What are we going to do? We're just going to have to golf. Maybe I'll lock in my golf game with all the extra time on my hands. Hopefully it's not too far into the season, but we'll have to see how that does pan out. I do want to go over this last thing for the podcast here. It's the narrative that is starting. The Toronto Blue Jays, I don't know if it's the Sunday scaries. I don't know if they're going out. Maybe they have to start going out on Saturdays. I don't know if they're hungover on the Sunday. But they have lost 10 straight games on Sundays.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's going on here? How is this just a random, unique thing going on for the Toronto Blue Jays? Or is there something deeper going on here that maybe they're not telling us?
Yeah, I can give you an answer. You know what the problem is, Carter? Back in the day, guys used to just crack beers in the clubhouse. We got to get back to that. Somebody bring out the cigars. Somebody get the beers going. These guys need to just loosen it up, get ready for a Sunday game. These matinees are just killing this team. So I don't know what they got to do. We got to see one of those performances where, a pitcher goes to the mound still hungover from the night before and then pitches a no-hitter. We've seen that once or twice. So I don't know what the answer is. That's my suggestion. Bring back beers. That's all. That's what I got to say.
Yeah, I don't think it's one of those things that they're going out or they're preparing differently on Sundays. It's just a unique pattern that's kind of unfortunately happening for the Toronto Blue Jays here. But it is kind of crazy how 10 games in a row when you play it on a Sunday. They haven't won a game on a Sunday since June, which is absolutely insane. but the Toronto Blue Jays have been playing better baseball. They haven't lost consecutive games in a very long time. So that's how you were hoping that the Toronto Blue Jays bounce back. You're hoping that once they lost against the Yankees, once the Royals come into town, I mean, unfortunately, the Royals have won 8 straight baseball games, so that is just the Blue Jays' luck this year. But hopefully they can continue on that trend, a little bit of a better trend, and bounce back after a loss against whichever baseball team it is.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the boys are going to do on the off day. Is it going to be just, hey, straight baseball? I know sometimes they get out doing a little fishing or something like that. So I always love those stories when maybe the Blue Jays social team posts something of what the team did on the off day, because I never think that's a bad thing. You know, everybody says like, oh, well, they should be on the field, they should be practicing. It's like, maybe you just need a day, get the team together, go do something. You know, stay with the fellas, but you know, get out there, get your head away from the game. And I don't think that's a bad thing with how this team's playing right now. Have a little bit of a gut check day and take it off with the guys, build that team chemistry back up once again. Always something I love to see. But Carter, my man, we crazy weekend, back into some more crazy baseball this week. You got anything left before we kick out of here for the day?
No, I mean, it'll be nice to have the off day for us as well. The players are well deserving of it for the stretch that they have been on. A lot of games in a short amount of time, 30 games in 31 days. Now at least we'll have some off days mixed in. They'll be a little bit more rested, good for the bullpen, good for the starting rotation, good for a lot of players on the team. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. All the support that we've gotten recently has been absolutely unbelievable. From really opening day all the way up to this point, we are very grateful for the position that we are in, being able to talk about our favorite baseball team 5 days a week. Absolutely incredible. But Brandon, I'll throw it back over to you. Just kind of end things off.
Yeah, no, like Carter said, it's been an absolutely crazy season of baseball. And I think the dedication that this fan base shows, that our listeners show to us, you guys are absolutely fantastic. And watching the comments roll in and the thoughts that you guys have, it sparks ideas for us of what we want to chat about on the next episode. So keep those coming. We always appreciate them. We may not respond to every single one of them, but as you guys can probably tell, everybody listening, that we see them and that it probably, relates to the episode that comes out the next day, because that's you guys really are the best. So we'll talk to you guys throughout the week, I'm sure, in the comment section, and we'll be back with you guys tomorrow.